Well, good evening, everybody. For those of you who don't know me, I am Dave Elkis. I am president of TBLOA. I'm joined on tonight's panel by Mike Gunther, TBLOA secretary, USA Lacrosse certified trainer, as am I for that matter. But tonight, I want to thank you all for attending the annual rules meeting. This year, we don't have a ton of rule changes, fortunately. Most of them are rules clarifications, so that will make it a little bit easier going forward. Tonight's agenda, do a quick welcome, a little bit of admin stuff, and then we'll go right into the 2025 rules changes, the points of emphasis. We'll answer some frequently asked questions, and then I will take questions after I've turned off the recording, so nobody has to ask their question on the recording. How's that? Just a quick note, TBLOA has a training committee comprised of 9 individuals, 8 of whom are college level officials, and 3 of whom at one time or another have been the chief trainer for our organization. Part of that is because we take training our officials very seriously. You guys have seen us on the field, so you know that, but I like to remind everybody that this is a profession and we take it quite seriously. Our training committee offers 10 hours of training to all of our officials every year. That's what we do on Zoom with our officials. The last 2 hours of those are coming right after our session tonight. Each of our officials, in order to be certified to work games, has to complete their annual USA Lacrosse coursework, which includes a refresh of the rules course, their annual professional development course, and rules exam for both youth and high school. Additionally, every official has to have a field evaluation done by one of our USA Lacrosse certified trainers, USA Lacrosse certified observers every 2 to 3 years. In order to officiate FHSAA contests, our association requires USA Lacrosse membership before you can even get on the field. But FHSAA requires each of our officials to take 5 courses presented by USA Lacrosse, in addition to passing an NFHS rules exam in order to get on the field. You can follow TBLOA's social media. I know some of you do. Follows us on Facebook, X, formerly Twitter, but we also have a YouTube channel, and it's all at TB Lax Refs. So if you wanted to follow us on social media, when we send a crew to your site for a playoff game, we tend to post photos of your school, and we'll mention your social media in ours. So if you guys have social media accounts you want us to reference, you can shoot those to me. I'll make sure we get them in when we have photos of our smiling faces to post. But now I know you didn't really come here for that, so let's jump into the rules presentations. This year, like I said, most of the rules changes were clarifications rather than wholesale rule changes as we've had in years past. These are the list of all of them, but we're just going to jump into them So first up, Rule 191A, which was changed last year to require the wearing of the chin strap under the chin. Because a lot of guys see their heroes on PLL games wearing the chin straps up here. Well, kids say, oh, it's under my chin, and as long as it was dangling under the chin, you couldn't do anything about it. You can't do anything to me, it's under my chin. So they changed under to on, so the chin strap shall be worn on the chin and attached firmly. I know there's some of the new helmets have a crank in the back that guys like to crank down and tighten it that way instead of tightening the chin strap. But if the bottom 2 straps are loose, technically they're not wearing their helmet properly. The penalty for failing to wear your helmet properly is a 1-minute non-releasable foul. So I encourage you to encourage your players to make sure that their chin straps are on their chins. If I can't see their mouth because it's covered by a chin strap, it's a 1-minute foul. Now, what I will tell you is if we catch it in pregame, we're going to say something to you, to your captains, to the individual. Hey, adjust your chin strap, make sure it's right. If they're in the game, we'll say chin strap on chin, please. And if they can't put their chin strap on their chin, we've got to flag it. So this is a foul we do not want to have to call. This is something that we can fix, but please be advised that when you certify that your players are legally equipped by rule before the game, you've said that they're going to wear their equipment properly, and that serves as the team warning. So let's see if we can get that fixed before Jamborees on Saturday would be ideal. But the only change here is under for on. in line 4. Change to Rule 2.1, specifically the situation, the approved rulings. It's always said that you must have a legally equipped goalkeeper on the field. Of course, it allows the goalkeeper to now be out of the crease, break their equipment, and have play continue because it treats a goalkeeper as a field player. But because of that change, there were several officials around the country who said, oh, your goalkeeper left because of an equipment issue outside the crease. That means he's a field player. You don't get a minute to warm up your backup goalkeeper. And the rules committee said, no, they get a minute to warm up the goalkeeper. So they added equipment issue into 2.11 situation to make sure that if you have to replace your goalie because his throat protector broke and you have to put your backup goalie in, your backup goalie will get a minute to warm up. So that's the big change in 2.1. Rule 4.3.1 was amended last year to shorten the exceptions in 1 through 4. They said, we're going to make it more readable. We're going to shorten it and say, for example, 431.1 was going to say, when a period ends with a player advantage situation or a flag down creating player advantage. That's what they shortened it to. But because it didn't actually say who you were going to award the ball to, some coach said, it doesn't say you give it to my opponent. It just says we won't have a face-off. So we go but AP. So what they did with 431 is literally go back to the wording that had been in the rule book from 2023 forward. So this is a reversion back to the prior rule for 2023 and earlier, just putting all the exact language back in that it had been before. So this is everything that you were used to. It's listed as a change because they had shortened it last year, but these are all the same exceptions they've always been. I would remind everybody who likes to yell, hey, he moved on a faceoff, that if you look in exception 4, it says when a player moves his cross or his body after set, gaining an advantage. What does that mean? That means that it's a judgment by the official as to whether or not the faceoff guy's movement actually earned him an advantage. So just because somebody twitches doesn't mean it's a faceoff violation. That's a judgment call. Rule 416 was changed in whole. It used to say something to the effect of checking an opponent's cross is legal, with one's own cross. But now they've spelled out when that checking is legal. They got tired of seeing guys standing on the crease getting their sticks checked when they were nowhere near the play. So while we have always said that body checking is never legal unless you have possession of the ball or within 5 yards of a loose ball, they've now clarified that you can't stick check a person who is not in possession of the ball or within 5 yards of a loose ball. So guy standing on the crease gets his stick checked, it's an interference penalty. It's always been an interference penalty, but now they're spelling out very clearly, you may not stick check a person here. So that's the change in 416. Really more of a clarification than a wholesale change. Last year, we changed the lines at the table area. The box was shrunken in, added these coaches area on the outside. So while the box has changed, they still want that all restarts starting at the table area be moved 5 yards in. The rule originally had said that we were going to do that when the ball went out of bounds in the table area, but it never said what was going to happen if there was a loose ball technical in that space. Mechanically, officials had always moved that restart in. But again, somebody said, it doesn't say that. So they've codified it. All restarts at the table area or within 5 yards of it are going to get moved 5 yards in from the sideline. And it's not a quick restart. It is a slow restart. So if we have a violation there or the ball goes out of bounds within 5 yards of the substitution, anywhere within 5 yards of the substitution area, that is a slow restart. Doesn't matter if the guy's standing there with his cross up going ready, ready, ready. You're not going to get a quick restart there. It's going to get moved in 5 yards. We're going to back everybody up 5 yards, and then we're going to restart play when all officials are ready. Rule 424.7, which governs player losing equipment, has added one line specifically that says if the team was in possession or entitled to possession it will be awarded possession on the restart. It was a common sense item, which is exactly how this rule had always been adjudicated. But again, somebody said it doesn't actually say that. So this was clarified. When we stop play for a player losing required equipment, not a stick, but safety equipment, whoever has the ball keeps the ball. If nobody has the ball, then we go to either AP, or if it's in the crease, we award it to the defense. But they wanted it to be clear, this is a safety stoppage. When someone loses required equipment, it is not a foul. It's an immediate whistle if somebody loses equipment in the scrimmage area, regardless of which player it is for which team. It is an immediate stoppage, unless a shot's in flight, but it's an immediate stoppage. Rule 542 regarding contact to the head and neck. Last year, they allowed us to go with a 1 minute non-releasable foul for indirect contact to the head and neck, which is a check that starts good but finishes badly. They've revised it somewhat to include this little piece here about an intentional slide up to the head and neck, resulting in a longer non-releasable penalty. Because what they were seeing in certain instances were individuals who said, well, as long as I start the cross check in the guy's chest, I can finish up high and only get a 1 minute foul instead of a 2 minute foul. So I can intentionally go for the head and neck if I hit body first, which was not the intention of the indirect rule. So now, if in the official's judgment, the ride up from the hitting the body from a 1 minute foul or even a good check, the ride up into the head and neck was intentional, a 2 minute foul may be assessed. And so that's the change here. Effectively limiting the 1 minute indirect to, oops, it started good and finished bad, which was the intent of adding the indirect rule. Slow whistles in Rule 783 have been modified such that if a pass is in the air and a personal foul is committed against the team last in possession, we're going to throw a flag and allow play to continue, as opposed to treating it, oh, it's a loose ball, throw a flag and kill it. So if player A1 throws a pass and while the ball is in flight, A1 gets slashed late, we don't have a flag and an immediate kill because nobody has possession. Team A was clearly the last team in possession, and they were throwing a pass or they were shooting. Now it's consistent with us throwing a flag and allowing play to continue on a late hit on a shot, but they're just clarifying here that we are going to allow play to continue on a pass while the ball is in flight if a personal foul is committed rather. Just like if there was a technical foul while the ball was loose, we'd play on and then say, okay, play on's off. You caught the pass, we're good. But personal foul, we know we're going to throw the flag, but here we're going to want to let play continue and let you maintain your advantage offensively. Rule 713.3 on inadvertent whistles was amended to add a reface if the inadvertent whistle occurs prior to the ending of a faceoff. Once again, the Rules Committee is trying to eliminate alternate possession as a solution. They really would rather the kids play than have a coin toss decide who gets the next possession. So in this case, if a faceoff had not finished when we had an inadvertent whistle, we're going to line them back up and reface, as opposed to going to AP. Moving on, we're going to go into points of emphasis. There will be time for questions at the end, just a reminder. So if you want to write those down, if you have any, we'll get to them, I promise. I don't think these points of emphasis will surprise anybody because they're remarkably similar to ones you've seen before, starting with eye shade. Once again, eye shade must be a solid stroke with no words, numbers, logos, symbols. It can't extend outside the eye socket on either side, can't cross the nose, can't be face paint. Violating the eye shade rule is a 1 minute non-releasable personal foul for illegal equipment. So everybody, at least your players do, they always ask, ref, why is Why is it illegal? And there are three reasons it's illegal. One, NFHS has made it illegal at all of their outdoor sports. It's not just a lacrosse rule. It's the same rule in football. One single stroke of eye shade within the eye socket. Number two, blackface is not okay anymore. Don't paint your face up all black. And number three, given the origins of our game, there are some tribes that think painting one's face in that fashion looks like war paint. It has no place in the medicine game. So I'm sure one of those three reasons will resonate with your players when they ask why. We all know that every teenager needs a why in order to get them to do some of these things. So if you need one of those, that's why. Procedurally, we try to arrest these eye shade problems prior to contests so we don't have to assess this foul. It's another one of those fouls we just don't like having to call. If you've seen me do it, I will usually tell your players that they don't have to take the eye shade off. They just can't play with it. If they'd rather have their face painted up like Ultimate Warrior and stay on the sidelines the whole game, that's cool by me. They just can't play with it. Again, properly worn equipment. So we talked about the helmet being on a chin. Use of any non-conforming equipment is prohibited, and penalties for illegal equipment is a 1 minute non-releasable foul. That includes wearing arm pads as the manufacturer intended. They're not tricep pads. They belong on one's elbow because the manufacturer intended them to go on the elbow, not on the tricep. So those are things that we're going to see. Just a reminder that there's new wording in the rules that clarifies chin straps are intended to be worn securely on the chin, not under it. So it's got to be as the manufacturer intended. Similarly, jewelry. The exception for religious items does not include the chain that the religious item is on. So a crucifix, fine. Star of David, great. Crescent, also fine. But the chain to which that charm is attached is not legal. They can take the crucifix and tape it to their chest, but when they sweat and the tape comes off and it falls on the field, I'm not helping them find it. So my suggestion, of course, is leave it off. But again, I'm not saying they have to take it off. I'm just saying they can't play with the neck chain on. The Rules Committee defined the scrimmage area this year, and it is actually defined as the area that's roughly within 5 yards in all direction of the ball or part of active play. What does that mean? When you have a 6-person scrum on a loose ball, the scrimmage area is 5 yards from the edge of the scrum in all directions. So that scrimmage area could be 20 yards across, right? Depending on how wide the scrum gets, plus 5 yards on either side. And the reason that's going to be critical, if a player loses any piece of equipment in the scrimmage area or, God forbid, gets hurt in that scrimmage area, that's the area where we have to consider an immediate stoppage, right? So there is actually a definition of the scrimmage area this year. The new field diagram that we talked about last year, now that this is the second year of this new field diagram, they want everybody to be very cognizant of it. Rule 662 is adamant that the coaches area is reserved to coaches during play. So the extra 5 yards between what used to be the box line and the current box line belongs to the coaches only. When a player leaves the team area and enters the substitution box, they should do so by coming through the timer area into the substitution box, not come through the coaches area into the substitution box. And at no time should they be standing in the coaches area. In fact, if a player is caught standing in the coaches area, they may be assessed a conduct foul, which can take the ball away or level a 30-second foul, depending on who has possession of the ball at the time. So make sure your players know that if they're substituting, get into the box, get substituted, get back into the team area, stay out of the coaches area. We want to make sure that coaches, you have area in which to work and that the players aren't crowding you onto the field, because if you leave the coaches area and enter the field, well, yes, that's a conduct foul on the coach. If you interfere with play, it's an unsportsmanlike conduct foul on the coach. And again, none of us want to have to call that on you. So we'd like you to stay in your coaches area. Similarly, just a reminder that coaches are only allowed on the field for 3 reasons: to tend to an injured player, to warm up a goalie, or during halftime, not during timeouts. If there's a timeout, stay in the coach's area, bring the players to you. It also has the benefit of making sure that the teams stay separated during timeouts, which prevents shenanigans on all sides, which keeps everybody in the game and lets everybody play the game that we all love. Nobody likes having to send kids home early. Well, I can think of one guy who might, but not me. We talked about unintentional versus intentional checks to the head and neck. Now, if in the official's determination we have intentional contact to the head and neck, it will stay a 2-minute foul, even if the original contact was not to the head and neck. I think we've beaten that one to death. I'm going to move on to frequently asked questions here. Face-off mechanics. Did anything change for face-off mechanics for high school this year? Really short answer. No. Face-off mechanics are exactly the same as they have been. We'll put the ball on the ground. We will ask the players to go down together. We'll adjust them until we're happy that they're top to stop and everybody's hands are off the line and that everybody's heads and feet and hands and knees are out of the neutral zone. We will say set and we will blow the whistle. We will vary our cadences. Sometimes it'll be set whistle. Sometimes it'll be set whistle. Sometimes it'll be set whistle. Sometimes we'll be moving. Sometimes we'll be stationary. But none of that has changed since last year. That's all exactly the same. Mechanics for face-offs in college have changed. If you're watching on Saturdays, it will look different. We get this all the time. What happens if a player jumps in the air, shoots, and is illegally checked into the crease in high school? 100% of the time, if you leave the ground of your own volition, no matter how you end up in the crease, it is no goal. So if you jump into the air as a player, shoot, and you get cross-checked in the back, we'll have a flag for the cross-check, but the goal's not going to count because you landed in the crease having left the ground of your own volition. Yeah. Diving into the crease is prohibited. You can dive and not touch the crease. That's cool, but you can't dive into the crease. There's no goal mouth in high school like we see in college. So again, that hasn't changed. You can't dive and land in the crease. That's just like leaving the ground of your own volition. When are we going to adjudicate a foul for a helmet coming off, right? If a helmet comes off, it's an immediate stoppage. So officials will stop play immediately. And the high school and college rules for helmet coming off are very different. In high school, if a player loses their helmet, it is not a foul unless they take it off intentionally. So in college, if a player loses their helmet, it's a technical foul on the individual who lost his lid. In high school, it's an immediate stoppage, and the player who lost their helmet is treated as an injured player, must leave the game, and may not return until the next dead ball following the resumption of play. Can you save the player with a timeout? Not until play has resumed. So if you were the offensive player whose offensive team whose player lost their helmet, you're going to retain possession. When we restart play, you could then call a timeout and bring your player back in, but you can't call a timeout on that dead ball and save the player and have the player stay in. That is true of any injury, not just the helmet coming off. In college, that rule is different, right? If you had possession and your team had possession and your player lost his helmet as the result of legal contact, it's turnover. If the ball is loose and you lose your helmet because of legal contact, your opponent's getting the ball because of the technical foul. That is not the case in high school. If the ball is loose when a helmet comes off and it's the result of legal contact and the ball's loose, we're going to go to AP unless it's in the crease and then it goes to the defense. Again, that's another one of those NCAA and FHS differences. And part of that is at the higher level, they really expect you to keep your lid on and they make the individual responsible for it. Warding off in high school lacrosse is different than in the NCAA. So let's go into that a little bit. In NCAA lacrosse, if you have both hands on your crosse, you can never be called for warding, period. You may be called for unnecessary roughness. You may be called for spearing, but you can't be called for a ward if you have both hands on your stick. In high school, if you have both hands on your stick and you use your arm to move your opponent's stick, that's fine. That's not a ward. However, if I have two hands on my stick and I use my arm or my shoulder to move your body, I have committed a warding infraction. So what does that mean? If a little guy runs into a big guy with his shoulder and the big guy absorbs the impact and is not displaced, no foul has occurred. So if somebody tries to bull dodge into one of your defenders, he's better off taking a step back if he wants a warding call. That's what that means practically. But I can move your stick. Now, if I'm doing it with one arm on my stick and I move your stick or your body, it's a ward just like it's always been, right? Free arm is a no-go. But two hands on the stick, moving stick is good, body bad at the high school level. Last up, we have stalling. People ask about stalling all the time. During regular gameplay, the team in possession of the ball has an obligation to go to the goal, even if you're man down. So you get a 3-minute foul, you obtain possession of the ball, you tell your guys, kill it, kill it, kill it. You've got 5 guys who are adept, and it's 5-on-6, and they're passing the ball around outside the box and keeping possession of the ball. You're going to get warned for stalling that you're going to have to get it in and keep it in. It's Rule 610 situation. You can go check that out if you don't believe me. But even man down, you have an obligation to attack the goal. In the last 2 minutes of regulation play, of course, we have an automatic get it in, keep it in. If the game is within 4 goals, the team that is ahead by 4 goals or fewer has an obligation to, we'll get a get it in, keep it in warning. They're going to have an obligation to keep it in the box at the offensive end of the field. If the game is tied, there is no such get it in, keep it in. There are a few corrections we have to the rule book that have been sent out. If you got one of this year's rule books, let me see if I can get it to focus in the camera there. Maybe not. There we go. One of these new rule books still has some errata in it. 545 was struck in favor of 542. That's the intentional versus unintentional hit to the head neck on indirect contact. We talked about 2-1-1, where we're making sure that if a goalkeeper is swapped out for an equipment issue, that they will have a minute. 4-5-3 situation A was the flag down slow whistle on a pass on a personal foul. 4-14-3, they've got the wrong preposition in it. It should be with a foot or any other part of the body instead of. And in 4-19-5 situation B, they inadvertently wrote while A1 is in still possession of ball, but that should have been while E1 is still in possession of the ball. And that concludes the corrections and emphasis and rule changes for 2025. At this time, I'm going to stop the recording